stand there, quiet, like you people always do." The words cracked like a whip through the hallway. They spoke about her the way hunters speak about a chair, something to step around, never something that could hear. "See?" Victor laughed. "She's quiet, like a shadow, like a mop leaning against the wall. You forget it's there until you trip over it." The insult landed before the door even finished closing. Lena Morales, 37 years old, brown-skinned, immigrant, live-in Maid for 12 years, stood beside the staircase, her spine straight, her eyes lowered. Her hands smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. She had learned that silence was not peace. It was camouflage. The front door opened wider. Ethan Cross, 52, white, billionaire founder of Cross Dominion Holdings, heir to comfort but starved for truth, stepped inside with a leather travel bag in his hand. He had returned early, hoping to surprise his wife, maybe even repair something he couldn't name. He walked straight into a trap. Victor didn't look at him right away. He finished his drink first, slow and theatrical. Then he turned, smiling like a man admiring a carcass. "Well, damn," Victor Cross, 45, white, polished interim CEO, said. "The king wandered back into the castle early. Guess no one taught you not to interrupt a funeral." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" His wife laughed from the sofa, soft, cruel, amused. "God, Ethan, you really are oblivious. It's almost embarrassing." Victor circled him, eyes sharp. "You show up unannounced like some lost puppy and expect loyalty? This isn't a movie. You don't get applause for existing." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's my house," Victor scoffed. "Was." He snapped his fingers. Two men in suits straightened. Legal folders lay open on the table. Documents Lena had dusted around an hour earlier. They hadn't been there then. Victor leaned in close enough that Ethan could smell the whiskey. "You should have stayed gone. Men like you always think the world pauses while you're away trying to feel important." Ethan glanced at his wife. "Tell me this is a joke." She didn't answer. She smiled. Victor's voice dropped, heavy with contempt. "We filed the paperwork this morning. Mental instability, aggressive tendencies, paranoia. You check all the boxes when you look like a man who's afraid of losing control." Ethan took a step forward. Victor raised a finger. "Careful, don't do the angry thing. They love it when you confirm the stereotype." Lena felt her stomach knot. She had heard everything earlier, the whispers, the laughter, the plan to lock Ethan out, freeze his access, call the police if he resisted. They had spoken freely because they believed she was nothing. Victor flicked his hand toward her without turning his head. "And don't get ideas. She's been scrubbing our dirt for years. Silence is her only skill." The words cut deeper than shouting ever could. Ethan finally noticed Lena, really noticed her. The way her hands trembled, the way she kept glancing toward the cameras. She inhaled, heart pounding. "Sir," she whispered, barely louder than breath. "Please." "Stay quiet." Victor spun. "Did you just speak?" Ethan looked at her. "What did you say?" Lena swallowed. Fear clawed at her throat. "If you argue, they'll call security. They already told them you're unstable. I heard everything." Victor's face hardened. "You lying trash! You hear what we allow you to hear!" He stepped toward her, voice sharp with threat. "Go back to the kitchen before you forget your place." Lena didn't move. Something broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Ethan slowly set his bag down. Victor smirked. "Good. See? Even you're learning." But Ethan's voice came out calm. "No, I'm listening." The room stilled. A sentence Lena's mother once whispered when fear ruled their nights rose inside her. Not as prayer, but as steel. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid." Lena lifted her eyes. "They changed the cameras," she said clearly. "This house isn't safe anymore." Victor froze. For the first time, power slipped. If you've ever been reduced to silence, mocked for your position, or treated like you didn't matter, then what happens next with Lena will shake you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices to follow what comes next. They thought silence meant obedience. They forgot. It also means she heard everything. The first thing Lena noticed after Victor's order was not the shouting. It was the silence. Security didn't rush in. No dramatic confrontation. No raised voices echoing through the marble halls. Just a quiet, coordinated movement, like a house changing owners without bothering to announce it. 2 guards appeared near the door, not touching Ethan, not even looking at him. Their presence was enough. The message was clear. You don't belong here anymore. Victor straightened his cuffs. Escort my brother to the guest wing. He'll stay there until his evaluation. Ethan didn't resist. That was what terrified Lena most. She followed at a distance, heart hammering, as Ethan was led down a corridor he had once commissioned himself. The walls were lined with art he'd paid for, light fixtures he'd chosen, security panels he'd approved. Now every camera eye felt hostile, every corner rewired. In the guest wing, the door shut with a soft, final click. Locked. Victor turned away immediately, already dialing his phone. It's done, he said casually. Send the memo, and make sure legal pushes the narrative hard. Emotional instability, stress-induced paranoia. Say he scared the staff. Lena flinched. The lies spread faster than any truth ever could. Within the hour, her phone buzzed with alerts she wasn't supposed to see, headlines flashing across news apps left open on countertops, whispered calls between lawyers in the kitchen. Billionaire founder steps down amid concerns. Sources cite erratic behavior board, acts to protect shareholders. No one asked Ethan anything. No one asked Lena at all. In the staff quarters, the other workers avoided her eyes. Some looked scared, others relieved. A few looked at her like she might be contagious. She overheard one of the cooks mutter, "Good. Men like him always fall eventually." Another replied, "Yeah, but don't say anything. Walls have ears." Lena retreated to the laundry room, the one place without cameras, at least the ones she knew about. She sat on a plastic stool, hands pressed to her face, breathing through the panic. Stay quiet, she told herself. You've survived worse. But this felt different. This wasn't just cruelty. It was erasure. She thought of Ethan alone in that locked room, confused, betrayed, stripped of authority overnight. A man who had never learned how powerless power could become. Her phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't the news. It was an internal security alert, sent to senior household staff by mistake. Notice, access privileges updated. Subject, Ethan Cross status, restricted, do not engage, report agitation immediately. Lena's chest tightened. They weren't just removing him. They were preparing to institutionalize him. Footsteps approached. Lena wiped her eyes and stood. Victor entered the laundry room like he owned even the air inside it. You've been quiet, he said, studying her. That's good. She said nothing. He leaned closer, voice low and cruel. Understand something. You didn't help him back there. You delayed the inevitable. And if you decide to grow a conscience now, you'll end up just like him. Locked out, erased, forgotten. Lena met his gaze for the briefest lamped second, just long enough for him to see something he hadn't expected. Resolve. Victor's smile thinned. Remember who feeds you? He left. That night, the mansion slept differently. Lena moved carefully, quietly, slipping through corridors she knew better than anyone. She checked the cameras, several feeds now looped. She checked the server closet. Password changed, but not everything could be rewritten. In a supply cabinet behind the east stairwell, she found something Victor didn't know existed. An old maintenance tablet, outdated but functional. She'd used it for years to log repairs. It still synced to a forgotten internal backup. Her hands shook as she powered it on. Logs scrolled past. Camera reroutes, access changes, timestamps, evidence. Upstairs, Ethan sat alone on the edge of a guest bed, staring at the door like it might answer him if he looked long enough. Downstairs, Lena realized something that made her breath catch. They thought she was invisible. And because of that, she could see everything. If you've ever watched a lie spread faster than the truth, if you've ever seen power rewrite reality while everyone stayed silent, then you're not ready for what Lena discovers next. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices as this story unfolds. They erased the man. They forgot the house keeps records. The mansion did not sleep. It held its breath. Lena felt it the moment the clocks struck midnight, as if the walls themselves were listening, counting footsteps, measuring intent. She moved slowly, deliberately, barefoot against cold marble, her shoes tucked beneath her arm like contraband. The maintenance tablet rested against her ribs, its faint warmth the only proof she wasn't imagining the danger closing in. She had cleaned these halls for years, every corner, every shadow, every blind spot. But tonight, the house felt rearranged, hostile, as if ownership had shifted, and the structure itself knew it. She stopped near the east stairwell and powered on the tablet. The first security log loaded. Camera reroute confirmed. Timestamp 6:12 a.m. Authorization Victor Cross. Lena swallowed. She scrolled. Access privileges revoked. Ethan Cross. Witness protocol initiated. Her fingers tightened around the tablet. This wasn't reaction. This wasn't panic. It was preparation. They had known he would come. Footsteps echoed somewhere above. Lena slipped into the shadow of a decorative column, holding her breath as two guards passed, murmuring about medical clearance and compliance reports. Their voices faded, leaving behind the hum of electricity and the quiet certainty that she was alone only by accident. She moved again, slipping through a narrow service door and into the hidden corridor behind the walls. Few people remembered these passages. Architects, contractors, cleaners. People meant to see everything and be seen by no one. The air was stale, laced with dust and metal, pipes lined, the ceiling like exposed veins, vibrating softly as water rushed through them. The tablet chimed. A new file surfaced automatically. Audio capture enabled. Private lounge. Lena hesitated, then pressed play. Victor's voice filled the corridor, smooth and unhurried. She'll stay quiet. They always do. Fear keeps them loyal. Another voice followed, lighter, amused. Ethan's wife. He won't fight back. He hates scenes. Just make sure the staff says he was agitated. Victor chuckled. Agitated men are easy to erase. Lena closed her eyes. The words pressed against her chest, heavy and undeniable. This was no misunderstanding, no family dispute. It was a coordinated dismantling, rehearsed and cruel. She moved deeper, following the corridor until it narrowed and sloped downward toward the main server room. The reinforced door loomed ahead, newly installed, keypad glowing faintly. Victor thought he had sealed this place. He hadn't counted on her. Lena noticed the vent panel above the door, slightly loose, one screw missing. Maintenance oversight, or arrogance. She climbed. Metal scraped against her palms as she pulled herself into the crawl space. Heat pressed down on her back. Dust coated her tongue. She crawled forward inch by inch, muscles trembling, counting each breath to keep panic at bay. Endure, she told herself. Just endure. She dropped silently into the server room, landing in a crouch. Rows of blinking lights surrounded her, steady and indifferent. The hum of machines filled the space like a mechanical heartbeat. She connected the tablet through an outdated service port she had used for years to log repairs. The firewall stuttered, then collapsed. Files flooded the screen. Emails between board members, draft legal memos, a folder marked Emergency Clause Activation. Another folder sat beneath it. Staff Compliance Strategy. Lena opened it. Her stomach twisted. There were scripts, prepared statements for house. Employees, suggested phrases, emotional cues, incentives listed beside names, threats beside others, deportation mentioned casually like a footnote. They hadn't just planned to remove Ethan. They had planned to turn everyone else into witnesses against him. Lena copied everything, hands steady now, fear replaced by something sharper. Purpose. Footsteps sounded outside the room. She froze. The door handle rattled once, then again. Voices murmured about lag and system delays. Someone cursed softly. Lena crouched behind the server rack, breath shallow, counting seconds. 30, 40, 60. The footsteps moved away. She exhaled slowly. A verse her mother used to whisper during long nights of factory work surfaced in her mind, not as prayer, but as resolve. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Lena straightened. She slipped back into the crawl space, retraced her path, and emerged near the guest wing. The corridor was empty. The door at the end stood closed. Ethan's door. She knocked once, then again, softly. The door opened a fraction. He looked diminished already. Collar undone, eyes ringed with exhaustion, authority stripped away by silence rather than force. "I have proof," she whispered. He stared at her, disbelief flickering across his face. She held out the tablet. As he scrolled, something shifted in his expression. Not anger, not panic. Clarity. "They planned it all," he said quietly. "Yes," Lena replied. "And they think no one will contradict them." Ethan looked at her differently then, not as staff, not as background, but as the only person standing between truth and erasure. "They underestimated you," he said. "So did you," she answered evenly. A distant siren wailed somewhere beyond the gates. Victor was pushing the story forward, accelerating the collapse. "They'll move faster now," Ethan said. "Then we have to be smarter," Lena replied. She turned to leave. "Lena," he called softly. She paused. "What you're doing?" "It will cost you." She met his eyes, unflinching. "It already has." She disappeared back into the hidden corridor, the house swallowing her once more. But this time, it was not hiding the truth. It was carrying it. If you've ever endured in silence while others rewrote your story, then what Lena uncovers next will remind you why patience is power. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices as this truth unfolds. The house kept the evidence. Now the outside world must hear it. By morning, the mansion felt smaller, not physically, but morally. Like the walls were closing in on themselves, compressing secrets, amplifying every whisper. Lena moved through the kitchen as if nothing had changed, preparing coffee trays, wiping counters, nodding when spoken to. But inside her apron pocket, the maintenance tablet felt heavier than it had the night before. Truth had... Wait. Victor was already awake. He stood near the breakfast bar, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and sharp. Lena caught fragments as she passed. "Control the narrative. Yes. Today. No mistakes." She kept her eyes down. He ended the call and turned, watching her too closely. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much," Lena said simply. "Funny," Victor replied. "I slept great." He smiled, but there was calculation behind it now. Suspicion. The house had shifted, and even if he didn't know how, he could feel it. Lena carried the tray upstairs, past the guest wing. Ethan's door was no longer locked, but two guards stood nearby, pretending to study their phones. He was a prisoner allowed to walk. Later, in the servants' stairwell, Lena slipped through a door marked electrical. It led not to wiring, but to a narrow exterior path that curved around the estate toward the old carriage house. Few people used it anymore. Fewer remembered it. Existed. She walked fast. Inside the carriage house, dust hung thick in the air. Sunlight streamed through cracked windows, illuminating shelves of forgotten tools. At the far end, someone waited. Marcus Hale looked older than she remembered. Once he had overseen estate security before Victor replaced him with a cheaper, more obedient firm. Marcus had been let go quietly. Restructuring, they'd called it. He straightened when he saw her. "You said it was urgent." "It is," Lena replied. She handed him the tablet. Marcus scrolled, jaw tightening with every line. "Jesus," he muttered. "They didn't just remove him. They built a cage around him. They're preparing to move him out of the house, Lena said. Today or tomorrow. Marcus looked up. Where? She didn't know, Lena said. But it won't be somewhere he can fight back. Marcus exhaled slowly. This is big. Bigger than family betrayal. I know, Lena said. That's why I need help. He studied her for a long moment. You know what this costs if we're wrong. We're not, she replied. Silence stretched between them. Then Marcus nodded once. I know a journalist. Investigative. Doesn't scare easy. But once we involve the outside world, Victor won't just retaliate quietly. Lena thought of the compliance scripts, the threats, the deportation footnotes. I'm already in danger, she said. So is Ethan. Marcus pocketed the tablet. Then we do this clean. They didn't see the car parked beyond the tree line. Inside the mansion, Victor paced his office, agitation breaking through his polished calm. Something was off. Reports were coming in late. Logs didn't match. Staff avoided his eyes. He dialed his wife. She's acting strange, he said. The maid. There was a pause. Then a dismissive laugh. You're imagining it. She's harmless. Victor stared out the window. No one is harmless. By afternoon, legal representatives arrived. Ethan was summoned downstairs under the pretense of a wellness discussion. Lena watched from the hallway as Victor spoke softly, reassuringly, the way men do when they're about to take everything. Ethan listened, asked measured questions, gave nothing away. When it ended, Victor placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll get you help. Ethan met his eyes. I'm sure you will. Lena caught that look. It wasn't surrender. That evening, Marcus called. I met her, he said. She's interested. Lena closed her eyes briefly. When? Tonight, Marcus replied. Off-site. But once this starts, there's no undoing it. There never is, Lena said. As darkness settled, Victor's retaliation began. Lena's locker was searched. Her phone was checked. A supervisor warned her about policy violations. Another mentioned her immigration paperwork. Casually, pointedly. Fear was being reapplied like pressure. In the guest wing, Ethan received a notice. Temporary transfer to a private medical facility pending evaluation. Departure scheduled for morning. They were running out of time. Lena stood alone in the courtyard, phone pressed to her ear, listening as the journalist outlined next steps. Verification, corroboration, a chance to speak on record. You understand? The journalist said. Once your name is attached to this, there's no anonymity. Lena looked up at the house. Its lit windows, its controlled calm, its carefully curated lies. Yes, she said. I understand. She ended the call and turned. Victor stood a few feet away. I was wondering when you'd slip, he said softly. Lena's heart jumped, but her face stayed still. Slip? You've been walking like someone who knows something, Victor replied. That's dangerous. He stepped closer. This is your last chance to remember who you are in this house. Lena met his gaze. I know exactly who I am. Victor smiled thinly. Then you're a problem. He walked away, already dialing his phone. Lena stood alone in the courtyard, the night air heavy around her. The storm was no longer coming. It had arrived. The removal happened before dawn. Lena sensed it not through sound, but through absence. The kitchen was too clean. The guards stood in different places. Even the air felt rearranged, like furniture moved while she slept. She poured coffee she did not drink and watched the clock slide forward, each minute dragging something closer she could not see. At exactly 6:18 a.m., Victor's voice cut through the house. Now. The word echoed. Boots moved. Radios murmured. A door opened down the hall that had never opened at that hour before. Lena's stomach dropped. She stepped into the corridor just as two guards emerged from the guest wing, flanking Ethan. He wore the same clothes as yesterday, no jacket, No phone. His hands were empty. Where are you taking him? Lena asked. Victor appeared behind them, calm, dressed for business. Medical observation. Temporary. For his own good. Ethan looked at her once, not afraid, resigned. This is illegal, Lena said. Victor smiled. So is obstruction. He turned to Ethan. I told you, cooperation makes this easier. Ethan nodded slowly. I'm cooperating. That scared her more than resistance would have. They moved him toward the side entrance, away from cameras, away from witnesses. Lena followed, heart pounding. Stop, she said. Victor raised a hand. Careful. One of the guards blocked her path. Ma'am. Victor leaned close enough that she could smell his cologne. You're overreaching. You had a choice. Quiet survival or loud consequences. I chose truth, Lena said. Victor's expression hardened. Truth is expensive. The door shut behind Ethan. The car pulled away. Just like that, he was gone. The house exhaled. Lena stood frozen as Victor turned back toward her. Search her room, he ordered casually. Phones, documents, anything unusual. Her pulse roared in her ears. 2 supervisors headed for the staff wing. Lena ran. She cut through the service corridors. Downstairs she'd cleaned 1,000 times, lungs burning, thoughts racing. Her room was small, temporary, easy to erase. She burst inside just as a supervisor entered behind her. Policy inspection, the woman said flatly. They overturned drawers, dumped her bag, pulled bedding from the mattress. Lena stood still, hands clenched, heart hammering. The supervisor lifted Lena's phone. What's this? Mine? Lena said. The woman scrolled, frowned, then handed it to Victor, who had appeared in the doorway like a shadow. He read silently, then smiled. That journalist? He asked. Ambitious choice. Lena said nothing. Victor tilted his head. You really thought you'd walk out of here with this story? He nodded to the supervisor. Terminate her access. Effective immediately. The word landed heavy. You can't just fire me, Lena said. Victor shrugged. Watch me. They escorted her out within minutes. No shouting, no explanations, just a plastic bag with her belongings and a signed notice citing policy violations. At the gate, Victor stopped her. You were useful once, he said. Now you're dangerous. Lena met his eyes. You're afraid. He laughed. Of you? Yes, she replied. His smile vanished. Leave, he said, before I make this worse. She walked. Outside the gates, the world felt too large, too indifferent. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. They took him, she said. I know, Marcus replied. They moved him fast. Private facility, no press access. Lena sat on the curb, bag at her feet, hands shaking. They found everything. She whispered. My room. My calls? Silence on the line. Then Marcus said quietly, Do you still have the backups? Lena closed her eyes. Yes. She had emailed copies to herself weeks ago, back when Victor first started tightening control. Old habit. Quiet insurance. Yes, she said. Good, Marcus replied. Because they just crossed a line. A patrol car rolled past slowly. Lena lowered her head, heart racing. Fear pressed in from all sides. For a moment, doubt crept close. What if this was the end? What if truth cost too much? What if endurance was just another word for suffering without reward? A verse surfaced then, not loud, not comforting, but steady, like a hand on her back. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. Lena stood. She wasn't done. That night, she slept on Marcus's couch, staring at the ceiling while rain battered the windows. Every sound made her flinch. Every shadow felt watched. By morning, the news had shifted. Billionaire founder transferred for evaluation. No mention of removal, no mention of force. Victor had tightened the story. Lena opened her laptop and began organizing files. Timelines, logs, audio, patterns. She worked until her eyes burned, until fear dulled into focus. Marcus watched quietly. "They'll come after you harder now," he said. "I know," Lena replied, "but they don't know what you still have." She saved the final folder and shut the laptop. Across the city, in a room with white walls and locked doors, Ethan stared at nothing, waiting. And Lena made a decision. She would not run. She would not bargain. She would endure. If you've ever lost everything for telling the truth, if you've ever wondered whether endurance is worth the cost, then what Lena does next will change the fight entirely. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay with Dignity Voices as justice pushes back. They took the man. They fired the witness. They forgot what faith plus strategy can do. Morning arrived without ceremony, thin light pressing through the blinds of Marcus's apartment as Lena sat awake at the table, hands folded, breathing slow. She had not slept so much as she had waited, listening to the city murmur like a distant engine. The laptop was open, files aligned, timestamps matched, every piece placed where it belonged. Fear was still there, but it had been disciplined, trained to stand in line. She read each document again, not for reassurance, but for sequence. Sequence was power. Security logs led to emails, emails to board calendars, calendars to prepared statements. Victor's design was elegant, and that was its weakness. Elegant lies required constant maintenance. One broken link exposed the rest. Marcus watched from the doorway, silent, respectful. He had learned that this quiet was not fragility. It was preparation. "You're building leverage," he said finally. "I'm building a clean chain," Lena answered. "One link strong enough to carry the next." Across the city, Ethan sat in a room painted white on white, the kind of cleanliness meant to calm. The clock had no numbers. A camera blinked patiently. Staff spoke gently, recording every response. He answered with care, refusing to offer anger they could label, refusing to offer despair they could document. His stillness unsettled them. Victor arrived late morning, confident, composed, irritation hidden beneath courtesy. He dismissed the staff and closed the door. "You're cooperating," he said, almost kindly. "That helps." Ethan looked at him without heat. "It helps you," he replied. Victor placed papers on the table, aligned just so. "Sign. End this. Quiet is mercy." "Quiet is control," Ethan said, "and control fails when the wrong person counts the steps." Victor's smile thinned. He stood, signaling the end. "You always think patience is strategy," he said. "Sometimes it's just delay." He left before Ethan could respond. Lena closed her laptop and stood. The planning phase was complete. Precision demanded motion. She made calls in a careful order. First, the journalist, requesting a meeting without publicity, with counsel and forensics present. Second, the analyst, asking for certification and chain of custody, no gaps tolerated. Third, a board member Victor believed loyal, a woman whose calendars revealed marginalization disguised as respect. "I know what you approved," Lena said evenly when the call connected. "I also know what you were never shown." Silence followed. Then a measured answer. "Send it." She did. By noon, Victor felt the shift. Not an explosion, but pressure applied evenly. Emails asked questions instead of offering praise. Meetings moved. Compliance reopened a file no one had mentioned in months. He frowned, scanning headers, searching for hostility and finding only caution. At the facility, Ethan was escorted to a different room. The questions changed tone. Dates, authorship, authorization. The staff's gentleness hardened into accuracy. Ethan answered plainly, naming nothing, contradicting no one, letting the record do its work. Lena met the journalist near the river, winter light glinting on gray water. No cameras, no entourage. Evidence spoke. The analyst confirmed integrity. The lawyer traced consequences. Lena proposed restraint. "If you publish now," she said, "he prepares. If you wait, He answers in too many places at once. They planned injunctions, ethics referrals, parallel reviews, containment, not spectacle. When they parted, the journalist said quietly, "You're not asking for sympathy." "I'm asking for sequence," Lena replied. Walking back, doubt surfaced, thin and persistent. Was endurance only stubbornness in better clothing? The city answered with indifference. A sentence her mother once whispered during nights that demanded patience rose uninvited. "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." Lena breathed and kept walking. Marcus called as she reached the door. "They're transferring Ethan again, off record." "Delay it," Lena said. She called counsel. The request was narrow, surgical. Within the hour, a notice arrived at the facility. Transfer paused pending review. Victor stared at the alert, pulse tightening. He paced, calling contacts, finding voicemail. Systems lagged. Nothing broke. Everything resisted. Evening settled. Lena sat in the darkened apartment, phone beside her, city lights flickering on like a circuit completing itself. Messages arrived, cautious acknowledgments, requests for clarification. The chain held. At the facility, staff informed Ethan of the delay. Their eyes no longer carried pity. They carried uncertainty. Victor remained in his office long after midnight, anger cracking through composure. He replayed conversations, searching for the breach. He did not see Lena. That was the error. She had never been loud enough to track, never visible enough to fear. She had been present. Presence sustained became power. The clean chain tightened, link by link, without noise. Night deepened, and with it came the careful work that could not be rushed. Lena opened the laptop again, adding notes, cross-referencing dates, flagging contradictions, building redundancy so no single denial could collapse the whole. She drafted summaries designed for different readers, each faithful to the same facts, each anticipating the objections Victor favored. She prepared for misdirection, for character attacks, for the lazy comfort of doubt. Marcus returned with takeout that went cold. He watched her map the sequence, then asked, "What if he comes for you directly?" "He already has," Lena said. "That's why this stays clean." She encrypted copies and stored them where convenience could not reach. She wrote instructions and sealed them, naming recipients who would act if she could not. It was not drama, it was stewardship. Across town, Victor called a bored ally and received courtesy instead of compliance. He called another and reached an assistant. The elegance of his design demanded obedience. Caution disrupted it. He poured a drink he did not finish and stared at the city, feeling the ground shift without cracking. At the facility, Ethan requested paper and pen. The staff noted the request, allowed it. He wrote nothing accusatory. He wrote dates and names he could verify, questions he wanted answered, a list of ordinary facts that refused to bend. He folded the page and placed it in his pocket, not for escape, but for order. Lena checked the time and sent a final message to counsel confirming the morning filing. She shut the laptop and stood at the window. The river reflected light in broken lines, each fragment part of a whole. She felt fear, then set it down. Her phone buzzed once more. A board member acknowledged receipt and asked for a call at dawn. Lena agreed. The chain had another link. She lay back on the couch and closed her eyes, not sleeping, just resting inside the plan. The sentence returned, quieter now, like a promise kept. "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." She let it be strength, not escape. Somewhere, Victor paced, measuring losses he could not yet name. Somewhere, Ethan waited, calm enough to worry his captors. And in a small apartment, Lena held sequence and silence together, turning endurance into leverage. The city breathed. The chain held. Control continued to slip, not because it was attacked, but because it was counted. Dawn would demand signatures and patience. Lena prepared both. She rose, washed her face, and wrote one last checklist, then tore it up and memorized it. When the phone rang at sunrise, she answered steady. She listened more than she spoke. She asked for confirmations. She thanked no one. Outside, the city woke, unaware of the balance shifting. beneath routine. Inside, the clean chain waited, complete enough to carry weight, quiet enough to endure pressure. Lena stood ready, not for applause, but for accuracy, knowing that when truth moves in order, it does not need to shout. She breathed once, squared her shoulders, and stepped forward, certain that sequence, not noise, would finish what patience had started today. The chain would hold, and the truth would move without permission. Forward. The conference room smelled like glass and money, polished surfaces reflecting faces trained for confidence. Lena stood near the back, spine straight, breath steady, listening to murmurs sharpen into tension. Board members gathered, phones silenced, eyes avoiding one another. Victor arrived last, smiling, wearing authority like a tailored coat. Ethan sat opposite, flanked by counsel, thinner but alert. The meeting had been framed as routine, yet urgency pressed every chair. When the door closed, silence settled, waiting for truth to choose its moment. No one noticed the quiet woman counting breaths, counting sequences, counting consequences before speaking without hesitation now. Victor cleared his throat and began smoothly, thanking everyone, promising stability, framing concern as care. He gestured toward Ethan, describing condition, evaluation, protection. Lena watched faces tighten. A board member asked about process. Victor deflected, smiling. Lena stepped forward, connecting her laptop, voice calm, precise. She said the meeting concerned sequence, not sympathy. Screens lit with logs, timestamps, rerouted cameras. Murmurs rose. Victor objected, claiming technicalities. Lena advanced slides, letting dates answer. The room leaned toward evidence. Counsel exchanged looks. Analysts nodded, and a quiet current of inevitability replaced the practiced confidence around the table suddenly for everyone present there. Lena played audio. Victor's recorded voice filled glass, measured and cruel, discussing silence, leverage, compliance. Shock rippled. Objections rose, then stalled. Authentication followed, chain of custody verified, methods explained. Ethan spoke quietly, naming dates, denying drama, requesting correction. Questions multiplied. Why prepare witnesses early? Who authorized emergency clauses? When cameras changed? Victor answered thinner each time, shifting blame, invoking necessity. Lena held eye contact, steady. The truth organized itself, link by link, resisting interruption. Board members scribbled notes, exchanged glances, and felt reputations tilt as certainty replaced convenient doubt during a meeting meant to be routine but suddenly irreversible today. Counsel requested a pause. Victor stood, voice raised, calling ambush, illegality, betrayal. The chairwoman asked him to sit. He didn't. Security hovered. Lena spoke softly, explaining preparation, not reaction, sequence over spectacle. She displayed staff scripts, incentives, threats footnoted. The room chilled. Ethan's described confinement, evaluations without cause, silence demanded. He asked for correction, not pity. The board conferred briefly. Motions formed. Authority shifted with votes recorded, precise. No speeches followed, only procedural clarity, legal thresholds, timelines, and consequences outlined with deliberate restraint as the company confronted itself before witnesses and cameras and under neutral fluorescent lights inside headquarters Today room. Victor's authority dissolved quietly. A suspension passed. An ethics review launched. External oversight approved. Victor laughed once, brittle, warning regret. Lena answered evenly, promising repair. Security escorted him out without spectacle. Doors closed. Breath returned. Ethan sat, hands trembling, then steady. Relief crossed faces, followed by responsibility. Reporters waited outside, noise swelling. Lena stepped back, choosing invisibility as agency. She had delivered sequence. Others would carry consequence. In that choice lay dignity, restraint, and a refusal to trade truth for applause as institutions recalibrated under scrutiny and lawful process while the city watched closely through glass walls and headlines alike. Ethan approached Lena near the corridor, voice low, grateful. She nodded, urging him to choose what he rebuilt. Cameras flashed as he faced press, measured, humble. Lena slipped away, unnoticed by design. Outside, winter air steadied her. She remembered endurance, the long counting, the patience that refused noise. A sentence returned, not loud, sustaining. Those who hope renew strength. She walked, certain restraint had weight. The reckoning ended without cheers, yet consequences began moving through systems, policies, and people prepared to correct errors and rebuild trust deliberately over months, not minutes, with accountability guiding decisions ahead across every department. Victor descended steps outside, rage contained, reputation unraveling. He shouted nothing. The absence accused him. Phones buzzed with updates he couldn't command. Inside, counsel drafted notices. Compliance scheduled interviews. Oversight requested access. Lena watched from a distance, neither celebrating nor hiding. She understood collapse rarely looks dramatic. It looks procedural. The chain tightened because it was clean. Order replaced outrage as documents, votes, and records performed justice without theater or vendetta for the first time since the plan began unfolding against timelines designed to silence dissent quietly and normalize abuse of authority under color of process claimed falsely by leadership. Reporters filed stories. Headlines measured. No heroics claimed. Ethan addressed staff briefly, acknowledging harm, committing repair, declining triumph. Lena remained unnamed. That anonymity protected the work. She returned to ordinary streets, feeling weight lift and settle differently. Endurance had become leverage, patience policy, silence evidence. The reckoning completed its circuit. Sequence prevailed, because truth released in order resists panic, outlasts power, and builds corrections that endure beyond headlines and meetings without demanding vengeance, spectacle, or permission from those exposed, as systems learned accountability through documented consequence applied calmly over time by people who refused shortcuts and stayed present through pressure. The board adjourned. Processes moved forward. Victor's name appeared in minutes differently. Lena checked her phone once, then turned it off. She breathed, aware the fight shifted phases. Nothing felt finished, but something felt corrected. She trusted sequence to carry weight beyond her presence. Dignity required no witness. In restraint she found strength. In patience, momentum. In truth, a structure capable of holding justice that institutions could adopt without fear or favoritism when guided by records, law, and deliberate oversight, instead of impulse, loyalty, or convenience which had enabled harm previously under trusted leadership illusions, now corrected by procedure alone. Ethan left with counsel, nodding to Lena once across distance. She nodded back, ending a chapter. Outside, sirens faded into ordinary traffic. The reckoning did not roar. It concluded. Order returned not as comfort, but as obligation, carrying names, dates, and responsibilities that could not be ignored. Lena accepted that change arrives quietly, held by systems willing to learn after harm, when patience outlasts pressure, and truth remains counted across meetings, filings, and days without spectacle that slowly reshape institutions toward accountability through boring diligence and courage shown by people like her who stay present when others leave or late. Lena walked home, unremarkable streets reflecting quiet resolve. She did not seek credit. Sequence had finished its work. Tomorrow would bring audits, hearings, repairs. Tonight brought breath. She understood endurance as strategy, faith as steadiness, and truth as order that survives storms. The reckoning proved dignity does not shout, but it lasts when patience outlives power and fear recedes under light slowly. Careful counting, honest records, and restraint rebuilt trust across rooms, screens, and days without spectacle or vengeance ever sought again. Lena accepted quiet completion, knowing sequence would carry truth forward through institutions learning accountability over time steadily together. The reckoning ended. Work remained. Lena rested, prepared, and moved on. Sequence, not noise, had done its work, and that knowledge settled like ballast, steadying her steps into whatever came next. Justice appeared procedural, patient, and durable. Proving restraint can defeat power without mirroring its harm when aligned with evidence and law over time and scrutiny by many hands working together. Lena trusted the process she had built, content to let outcomes speak while she reclaimed ordinary life with patience earned. Through endurance and faith learned quietly across days inside demanding systems that finally corrected course together steadily now. The city did not celebrate. There were no sirens, no confetti, no raised voices declaring victory. Morning arrived as it always did, lights sliding between buildings, commuters crossing streets, coffee cups steaming in tired hands. From the outside, nothing appeared changed. Yet, inside the systems that had once swallowed truth quietly, something irreversible had shifted. Lena watched the city from a small park bench, coat pulled tight, breath fogging the air. She had not returned to the mansion. She had no reason to. That place belonged to the past now, to silence misused and power misunderstood. What remained was consequence. The news arrived without ceremony. A settlement agreement had been finalized overnight. No admission of guilt was written into its language, but the structure spoke clearly enough. Authority had been restored. Oversight imposed. Financial restitution outlined. Victor's signature appeared where certainty once lived, tight and defensive, reduced to ink. An executive apology followed later that day. It was brief, carefully worded, delivered by counsel, not conviction. Victor acknowledged process failures and unintended harm, avoiding names, avoiding intent. The world accepted it with mixed reaction. Some called it accountability. Others called it strategy. Lena felt neither satisfaction nor anger. Apologies, she had learned, were not endings. They were thresholds. Ethan's apology came differently. He stood before staff without cameras, without notes. He spoke plainly about absence, about trust given too easily, about systems built without enough listening. He did not excuse himself. He did not dramatize harm. He named it, then committed to repair. That was the difference between reputation management and responsibility. In the weeks that followed, changes unfolded quietly. Policies rewritten, reporting lines corrected, independent auditors embedded. The phrase brand accountability appeared often in internal memos, not as marketing language, but as obligation. Some resisted, others welcomed clarity. Institutions, like people, required time to relearn honesty. Lena remained unnamed. That too was intentional. She met Ethan once more, not in boardrooms or offices, but in a public library cafe where no one watched closely. He looked lighter, unburdened by urgency. "I offered you a position," he said gently. "Oversight? Ethics." Lena shook her head. "I don't belong inside that structure. You built it back," he replied. "I corrected it," she said. "There's a difference." They spoke briefly about protections for staff, about reporting safeguards, about dignity written into policy rather than promised in speeches. Then they parted, no ceremony required. Lena walked home through ordinary streets, feeling something she had not expected. Peace, not relief, not triumph. Peace born from endurance completed. At night, she returned to her small apartment and unpacked the last of her belongings. The maintenance tablet lay on the table, its screen dark. She powered it down fully for the first time, then placed it in a drawer she would not open again. Its purpose had been fulfilled. In the quiet that followed, reflection came naturally. She thought of how silence had once been forced upon her, shaped by fear, by position, by threat. She thought of how silence had later become her tool, her shield, her method. Endurance had taught her timing. Faith had taught her restraint. A verse her mother once whispered after long days of labor returned to her, not as memory, but as understanding. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness, she realized, was not surrender. It was alignment. The empire that once loomed over her life had not fallen with noise. It had restructured itself, under truth, compelled by sequence and record rather than rage. That was victory enough. Weeks later, Lena began working at a community resource center, helping others navigate systems designed to intimidate. She did not tell her story unless asked. She taught process, documentation, patience, how to protect oneself without becoming hardened. Sometimes people asked why she didn't push for more punishment. She always answered the same way. Because correction lasts longer than revenge. One afternoon, she received a message from Marcus. The last review had concluded. Oversight would remain. Safeguards were now permanent. The chain held. Lena closed her phone and smiled softly. Nothing else was required. As seasons shifted, the story faded from headlines. New scandals replaced old ones. But inside the company, inside policies, inside quiet meetings where decisions were now documented instead of whispered, her work remained. Truth had done what it always did when released, with care. It endured. On a Sunday morning, Lena sat by her window with sunlight warming her hands. She thought about how many people believed justice had to roar to matter, how many believed dignity was weakness. They were wrong. Dignity was strength practiced over time, the kind that outlived power. She breathed deeply, grateful not for recognition, but for completion. Before closing her notebook, she wrote one final line, not for anyone else, but for herself. Victory does not arrive when the powerful fall. It arrives when the quiet are no longer afraid. This story was never really about a mansion, a billionaire, or a corporate collapse. Those were only the surface structures. At its heart, this story is about what happens when silence is forced on the wrong people, and what changes when that silence becomes chosen, disciplined, and purposeful. Lena's journey reminds us that dignity does not announce itself. It does not demand permission. It waits, observes, and endures until truth has enough weight to stand on its own. In a world that celebrates loud victories and public triumphs, this story offers a quieter lesson. Endurance is not weakness, and patience is not passivity. They are forms of strength that grow invisible roots. Many of us have lived moments where speaking too soon would have destroyed us, where power felt immovable, where staying quiet was not cowardice, but survival. This story honors those moments without romanticizing them. It tells us that silence, when paired with faith and clarity, can become preparation instead of erasure. There is also a warning here. Power without accountability always believes it can rewrite reality. It assumes people beneath it are unseen, unheard, and replaceable. But Scripture reminds us that truth does not depend on status to prevail. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Stillness in this sense is not retreat. It is alignment with justice that does not rush, does not panic, and does not need revenge to be complete. Lena does not win by becoming cruel. She does not imitate the system that tried to crush her. She refuses to trade dignity for dominance. That choice is the real victory. When justice mirrors the methods of injustice, it corrupts itself. But when justice remains clean, it endures. This story also challenges us personally. Where are we being asked to shout when wisdom calls for restraint? Where are we tempted to give up because endurance feels unrewarded? Faith does not promise immediate vindication. It promises presence. God walking with us through the long middle, where outcomes are uncertain and courage must be quiet. In the end, the empire does not fall because someone screams louder. It changes because truth is counted carefully, because patience outlasts fear, and because dignity refuses to disappear. That is the lesson worth carrying forward. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. You do not have to be loud to be powerful. You do not have to be seen to matter, and you do not have to surrender your values to survive a broken system. Quiet courage still moves the world. If you've ever endured in silence, if you've ever been told to stay quiet to survive, Remember this story. Truth does not need permission. Faith does not need noise. And dignity, once reclaimed, cannot be taken again. If the story spoke to you, don't forget to like and subscribe. And stay with Dignity Voices for more stories of quiet courage, justice, and faith.